We're back with Contemporary Black Voices, and this is one of the best history segments that we have ever had. We're talking about Black Wall Street. You really don't know Black Wall Street. And when we left off with Dr. Leslie Stratford, and we'd like to, Sharon had a comment off camera that she would like to make. Go ahead, Sharon.
Well, hello, Dr. Stratford, and it's great meeting you. I feel that I'm in front of royalty. But one of the things I did say off camera was that your story, your family story, our family stories are stories that we need to keep repeating so that we know what happened behind us, so we know where to go forward. And this these book bans, anti quote unquote Black history, aka CRT for some people, we need to just ignore that and be forthcoming on our histories because there's something there that's going to help us survive the next storm. So I'm excited that you're on the show with us. What happened in Tulsa was horrible, but to hear a positive, some positiveness from what happened is what we need to hear as well. So I'm glad that Fred is doing the movie, has written books, it has argued with us. So it's nice to hear the good, if you can find good, but somehow there is some goodness in what happened for us to move forward.
So, having said that, Dr. Stratford, your family, knowing this history, how did it come about when you met Fred, or how you heard about anything, and how does all that fit in with how the family feels about this story really not having been told the way other stories have?
I'm not quite sure I got the question.
I was asking, when you met Fred and the writings that he had, and how you became aware of him knowing about Black Wall Street, how you knew about him understanding about your great great grandfather.
Yeah, my great grandfather. Yeah, I found out about the story, as I said, when I was 4 years old. Might
But
have been early, but sorry, but it it was humbling because it made me understand that almost anything that I would have to go through in my life would not even compare with what my grandfather or my great grandfather or even his father, Caesar, had to endure. But it also made me aware of the fact that there was this strength that came not only from having been in an environment where you absolutely were not appreciated, but also were bought and sold, was something that it was kind of difficult for me to wrap my head around. But I saw in my grandfather, C.F. Stratford Sr., all of his accomplishments. For example, he was the founder and co-founder of the National Bar Association as an attorney. He followed in his father's footsteps. He was also the founder of the Cook County in Illinois, Cook County Bar Association, and a pioneering civil rights attorney. He argued the case before the Supreme Court and won in 1940, the Supreme Court case, which was Hansberry versus Lee, which struck down racially restrictive housing covenants, which is normally called redlining when certain people weren't allowed to buy property in one area or another. And of course, he was the lead attorney on the Tulsa case in 1921, having won his father's life and freedom to continue. And his character and his accomplishments filtered down to my grandfather, JB did, grandfather, and my dad. I can remember my grandfather had two children. My father, C.S. Stratford Jr., and Jewel Stratford. And Jewel would, and Dad too, would go and spend time at the law office, at his law office during summer breaks. And so when I had summer breaks, both my Aunt Jewel and my dad had me working for them in
Wow.
capacities. And so, you know, working in a law office, taught me how to alphabetize case files and answer phones and dispatch, police officers or ambulance, and also to make sure that I knew how to arrive on time.
Your
So
family seems to have a very strong bloodline. Yes. I just happen to know about Jewel Stratford. Can you touch on her a little bit?
Well, Aunt Jewel was an attorney. She followed in her dad's footsteps and her grandfather's footsteps as well. She early on, I think the first recognition that my aunt was doing something really powerful was the fact that she represented both the first two wives of Muhammad Ali. And, there were these names that began to come up that you were familiar with, but she represented them and everybody came out content, let's put it that way, with the results. There was no animosity, there was no hostility. They were able to work in such a way with her clients, not just the famous ones, but also with government. At that time, we're talking in the early 19, probably 30s and 40s, that, she became really involved with political affairs. And she was given a position as Deputy Solicitor General to the White House during the Bush administration, and also Ambassador for Refugee Affairs. It wasn't until 1997, however, that because of her continuous fight for rights for her family to restore our good name, that my great grandfather was exonerated from any wrongdoing. No one has been held accountable, of course, for any of the things that happened there. But it would seem to me that, the city of Tulsa and the state of Oklahoma should bear some of the brunt of the catastrophic events that happened there.
Absolutely. We're going to take a little break again. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the future of how we begin to tell the story and what happens next. We'll be right back with the You Don't Really Know About Black Wall Street.